So in part 3 we're going to be looking at how to add the functionality for the search for a player function, and we're going to make it slightly interesting. So we have, let's just demonstrate what we have so far. We can add players. Our football coach has just had 3 amazing footballers join his little club or coaching session, whatever it's called, and he wants to add them immediately to his little system. So he's going to add Jonathan and add the goals he had. He's going to add somebody else, Ronaldo, why not? Oh, and he's amazing. And he's going to add somebody else. Let's call him Tristan. Oops, let's get this little capital in. And I know this is completely unrealistic for the amount of goals, but as to demonstrate. Now, in the search for a player, let's say our football coach would like to search for any particular player, so he would enter the name, the key, remember this is the key in the dictionary, such as Ronaldo, and he would like not just to present all the different goals that have been scored, but to present an average. So that's quite interesting. He can see at a glance what is the average goals, what are the average goals that this particular player has played. So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to add the functionality to the search players function. So let's start by doing that. So to begin with, let's make it a little bit pretty, and let's add a little heading. It's always nice, it's always worthwhile making something look good. Now, remember that we have a dictionary which is called Player Info, so I'm going to remind you of that. This is the dictionary here, which has now been populated. Every time you go through the program you can add players. So it's interesting to note, this is a bit of validation, that if a player has not been added, obviously nothing should happen. It should say something like you have no players registered. So let me come back to that, but first let me start just doing it. So the coach is going to want to ask for a player's name. So let's say name, let's ask for some user input, which is just going to be the player name. I'm going to add a while loop here. And this is perfect for looking up a dictionary. So we're going to say while the name is not in player info. So what are we trying to say here in the keys? So we're looking up the dictionary, and remember the dictionary consists of keys and values. We're looking up the dictionary keys, and we're saying if the name is not in the keys, well, we want obviously to say something like please enter a valid name, or someone who actually is in there. So that's a nice little bit of validation that we're going to add. Otherwise, we can have, and then we can ask them to put the player name again in. And if, in fact, the name is in the player info keys, we would like it to do a little clever calculation, which is going to be printing the average number of goals. So I'm going to write average goals for this player is we want to turn it into a string, and we're going to add a sum. You can write a little pseudocode for this if you're doing it. I'll explain it in a minute. Now, let's see what happens if we... An interesting point that I just made was that if I try now to search for a player, and I put in someone, obviously no one is in the dictionary, so it's just going to loop around forever. So really there should be some sort of validation which says you haven't entered any players yet. So let's go back and do that first. And we can do that by adding a little if function. If, and we're trying to look through the dictionary, and this len is looking for the length of the dictionary. So if the length of the dictionary is equal to 0, in other words, that is Python, little programming way of saying if there's nothing in the dictionary, then print you have no players registered. So go back to the main menu. Else, we want something to happen that does need to be indented. So let's see if that works. Excellent, it says you have no players registered, and it asks me to go back and add a player. So let's just add 2 quick players. I'm going to add Mr. Marvin, who did very well indeed in his 3 goals, and Mr. Moose, who did even better. And now I'm going to search for a player, I'm going to look for Mr. Marvin, and it gives me the average goals 252. You can do a little test to see if that's has accurately calculated the average. So that solves that, and you can see that we've used quite a few complex things. We've used a little while loop, we've used some if, we've thought a lot about validation, which is making sure that the entries and the input coming from the user is valid, which is very important when you're making a program. So in part 3 we're going to move on, and in a sense gets quite easy really. Once you know how a dictionary works, we're going to look at how to view all the players, and how to possibly in the next part look at how to update a dictionary with a player record.